Okay, we'll call to order this meeting of the California Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board on May 20th, 2020. This is an unusual meeting because we are on Zoom. More about that later, but first we'll do a roll call of the members. Will the minutes please show the chair is present? Member Reeves?
You're on mute.
Apologies, I know. Present.
Thank you. Member Eng?
Member Eng, present.
Member Allen?
Virtually here.
Member Kent Monning?
Present.
Okay, thank you. Let the minutes show that all members are present. And now we will approve or adopt the minutes of the April 15th, 2020 meeting, our last meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Moved by member Eng. We will
Second.
move to a vote. We'll do a roll call vote for everything. Vice Chair Reeves,
Aye.
member Eng,
Aye.
member Allen,
Aye.
member Ken Monning,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye also. So please show the minutes of the April 15th meeting being adopted unanimously. Now we'll move to the chair's report, and just want to reiterate, this is an unusual meeting. So if we're watching, please bear with us if there are any technical issues. We've got a great IT staff that's working to make this as smooth as possible, but this is the first attempt. So just want to let you know that since the last meeting, the board has resolved 1,132 appeals. That's since April 15th. You'll see those who are watching a meeting for the first time, our open sessions are relatively short, probably less than an hour, but most of the board's work is done as appellate judges who hear cases during the course of the month. Again, this month, my 4 board colleagues heard and resolved 1,132 appeals of unemployment decisions. Last month, by the way, our lower level judges, our field judges, moved from in-person meetings to telephone meetings. Again, this is all obviously because of the coronavirus, because of COVID-19. And now they are looking at moving from phone meetings to Teams meetings so that they can not only hear the claimants, but also see them. And that I think will lend to a better process for our judges and for the attendees. And speaking of attendance, since we've gone to virtual meetings, either phone or Teams, attendance of parties at hearings is 5% higher than it had been. So I think it speaks to the fact that people sometimes have problems getting somewhere, but can get there easily, access it easily by telephone or computer. So I'm glad to see our attendance is higher. As far as this meeting goes, a couple members probably have issues going on because we're all at home. If you hear a puppy barking in the background, that's probably my new puppy. And if it gets real bad, I will turn the gavel over to Vice Chair Reeves and return as soon as possible. But right now, things are very calm here. Some good news because of the, well, good and bad news. Because of the pandemic, as you know, California is in a deep budget crisis with a $54 billion budget hole. So there are cutbacks throughout state government, throughout our budget in general. But I'm happy to report that in acknowledgement of the fact that the unemployment system is so critical at a time like this, the governor has approved our hiring a large number of new administrative law judges to hear cases that might come to us, and also approved a continuing effort for us to modernize our technological infrastructure so that we can make the process more smooth for all of the parties involved. So I'm pleased with that. I think it's a very important and a good decision by the Labor Secretary and the governor. Want to speak briefly about public comment for those of you who may wish to not just watch the meeting, but address the meeting. Later in the agenda, we will get to public comment. When we do, members of the public will have 5 minutes to make a comment. But as as the title of the segment indicates, it is comment only. It's not a dialogue with board members. It's not a question and answer session. We'll have 5 minutes to make your comment. And then after the meeting, staff will reach out and follow up with you as appropriate. Certainly not with everybody, but when there is an appropriate time to get back to you, a staff member will do that. But that will not be done during the meeting. One other thing, for those who are waiting to make comment or ask questions about intake, about getting through to EDD, about how they file their initial claim, it's important to understand that that's not what we do. We are the Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board, so we handle appeals after claims have been filed, and if there are disagreements about the way that a claim has been handled, whether it's been granted or not. We have nothing to do with the initial intake of claims, and in fact, we can't because we later sit in judgment of that process. So if you have a question for EDD or related to trying to get through the EDD, the folks there are working incredibly hard, and our colleagues are doing, we know, all they can, but you need to address that with them and not with us. Another word for my colleagues on the board, there will be a closed session today, just a reminder, so please stay in the meeting. Now, members of the public who are watching, that part of the meeting will not be televised. It is closed to the public. And we'll let you know when we move into closed session. Whatever we determine in closed session, any action we may take will be made public at the conclusion of closed session. We'll come back to open session and let anybody who's still watching know what's transpired. Lastly, I want to acknowledge this is Elena Gonzalez's last meeting with the board. She is our executive director and chief judge and has been incredibly invaluable to me as chair and to the organization and to the people of California. We want to do a celebration. It's hard to do with current requirements that are in place under COVID-19, but as soon as we are able to move into a more normal phase, we would love to do, and we will do, a celebration for Elena, acknowledging 16 years she's been with the Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board, 16 years, and 7 of those years, the last 7, she has been the executive director and the chief judge. So again, Elena, we'll say much more in the future, but thank you so much for your service to CUIAB, to me, to the board, and to the people of California. With that, I will conclude the chair's remarks and move to my vice chair, Dan Reeves, for any comments he might have.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few comments. First, I'd like to thank the technical staff who've made it possible for us to move to face-to-face online meetings for these hearings, which I think are really important. Secondly, I'd like to thank all the hardworking staff at EDD, who I know are working around the clock with very challenging technological equipment. I think that they're really working hard. I know that they've got a huge backlog, but nonetheless, they deserve our thanks. And finally, I'd like to thank Elena for all of her outstanding public service over the years, and particularly to this board and to me personally. She's been a valuable guide for me as I started this job over a year ago. And I really want to thank her for all her service. Thank you, Elena. And that's it.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate the comments. Moving now to member Eng.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to associate myself with Vice Chair Reeves' comments. In addition, I wanted to especially thank those individuals, the judges, the staff, even our very own districts who are working on site. And we can, I guess if I can correctly look at your backgrounds, I know some of you are, and I know throughout CUIAB, there are many that have essential functions that, unlike us being able to meet together on Zoom, have to report in to work. I want to tell you that I've received a number of phone calls from people asking me to express appreciation for those individuals that have to report in every day. Secondly, I have gotten a number of questions that perhaps I will reserve later on or perhaps Mr. Silva, but the nature of it was that when the May revise came out, there was an indication of a 14.5% cut in labor and workforce development. Wanted to just maybe ask that question in advance, how it affects what our chair indicated as far as the hiring of judges, as well as the impact, just to give you a heads up, Mr. Silva, that to get to that point. And then finally, I want to also extend my appreciation to Elena. Elena is a trailblazer. One of the few women and women of your particular community, ethnic background to serve in that high level. And you've been a true trailblazer, and especially to the community that I happen to spend a good deal of my time with. Wanted to thank you from the bottom of our hearts to show that anything that's impossible is possible if you work hard. And of course, you have the brain power. And I want to thank you for being a personal inspiration to me. And I know we said a lot during the last board meeting, and the minutes are contained therein, but since this is the last one, you happen to get some dessert comments as well. So thank you very much, and Godspeed to wherever and whatever you'll be doing in the future, probably staying at home like we are now. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mike. Moving on now to Member Allen. Member Allen.
It seems that he may have dropped off, Chair Block.
Okay, thank you. We'll move instead to...
Oh, there he is. He's on mute, though.
Member Allen, if you can hear me, unmute and give your member's report.
Yes, my connection failed. That's what's happened. So I'm sorry. I just was able to get back on using my personal hotspot. Regarding my report, first of all, thanks so much to Elena. I've served with you for so many years. Remember when we hired you to the job? You've been a wonderful person to work with over all these years. And the other thing I wanted to mention was I wanted to thank the management team. I had a couple of questions at the last meeting regarding all the new federal programs that are being developed, being administered by the EDD. And I got a terrific response from our management staff regarding that. And also our council was able to supply me with a roster of all the declarations put forth by the governor, which was very helpful to me regarding the public health emergency. And like always, a big thank you to everyone on our team, our judges, our support staff, IT. And I don't know about Zoom, but maybe in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Member Ken Monning.
Just briefly to echo on thanking everyone, everyone in the labor agency from where the claims start all the way up to the appellate branches. It's tremendous to see people doing this crucial work at home, whatever the home front looks like these days, because there are challenges there as well, or the people who are still going into the office. I'm just really appreciative to be a part of an agency that is continuing to work on a high volume of cases to help everybody during this time. And then also to thank Elena Gonzalez. I feel very appreciative that I got to overlap with you, even if briefly, but you were a crucial part of my onboarding, and I'm just wanting to wish you the best of luck and looking forward to see what the next chapter holds for you.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate those comments. Now we move to item 6 on our agenda, which is public comment. Item 5, I'm sorry, public comment. And I just want to reiterate some of the things I mentioned in my chair's report in case any people who are with us now were not with us at that time. Each member of the public who wants to make a comment will have up to 5 minutes. Don't have to fill the whole time, but you have up to 5 minutes. Important to understand that these are comments. There won't be any dialogue with the board, no question and answer. But staff will follow up with you as appropriate if you want. If you state your name and give us a phone number or address, staff will follow up. If you don't have to give us your name or your phone number or address if you don't want any follow-up. You'll be raising your hand virtually in order to be recognized. And our technical staff, I'm sure, will alert me to what I should be doing to make sure we get you on appropriately. And last comment I'd made earlier, which I'll make again, is regarding EDD and the hard work that those folks are doing over there, it is different from the work that we do. So comments to us should really relate to appeal hearings about decisions that have already been made by EDD, either granting unemployment or denying unemployment. We handle the appeals decisions. We don't handle the intake, the initial claims for unemployment. That's done by an entirely different office. And you can comment on that if you wish, but we are not really the appropriate folks to act on any comments in that regard. And with that, we'll go to those who wish to address the board, if any. Please raise your hand. Jefferson, is there anyone with a hand raised?
We do have, looks like 2 folks with their hands up now. It looks like Ben Hermes was first. Albert, would you allow that person to speak? Thank you.
Hello.
Go ahead, you have 5 minutes.
Excellent. Thank you very much for taking the time to hear me out. My name is Ben Hermes. I am a resident of Los Angeles, California. I am a taxpayer and a voter, and I'm also an actor here in Los Angeles. And as you are probably aware, there is a discrepancy with many of us entertainment workers here in California, based on the fact that a lot of us are freelance workers, 1099 earners, and the current CARES Act, the way that the language is set up, seems to stipulate that first you need to receive a W-2 unemployment as opposed to going to get the pandemic unemployment assistance. I did a lot of research when I found out the CARES Act passed and the PA was going to be available. I have been a 1099 worker, making more than 90% of my income each year from 1099 work. But as an actor, I also receive random residuals that come in. These residuals are work that I have not had a day of a W-2 job since July of 2017. It has been close to 3 years. But I do get randomly these residuals that pop in from SAG-AFTRA. And when those happen, they get put into the system. So I waited until April 28th to apply for PUA, considering that my work is really 1099 based. And a few days later, I received a letter from the EDD saying, sorry, you get regular W-2 unemployment insurance, and therefore, here is your weekly benefit amount, which is $55 less than the minimum PUA amount. It took a while, but I finally got through to EDD, spoke to a representative back last Monday, who I also needed to get it backdated because even though I put the application in on April 28th, they started my appeal, they started my claim as of the beginning of May, or the week of April 25th. And I said, no, I was, had hours reduced in March and was furloughed by March 16th. I need to backdate it. She basically informed me that is fine, I can go back there. However, if that happens, then I have to then change to a different base period, which would then go back to the Q4 of 2018, and my W-2 income was only 1/3 what my W-2 income was from 2019. I'm making $112 in W-2 unemployment based on October to December 2019. It was going to probably be reduced to $30 or $40. And the way that the current law is set up is that anytime we receive residuals, we need to claim it. If we claim more than what we're currently getting in weekly benefit amounts, what ends up happening is that not only do we lose that weekly benefit amount, but we're also going to be losing the $600 in additional PEUC. So I have no control over when these residuals come in. And as I mentioned, I have not worked a W-2 day in close to 3 years, but me and thousands of other Californians that are hybrid workers, that are 1099 workers that have a little bit of W-2. And some of them may have worked W-2 jobs or 1 day last year, and that's qualifying them for W-2 employment. We should be considered PUA. It's that simple. I should not be in this situation where I have to be fighting tooth and nail to get what was provided for in the CARES Act. So I have yet to file my appeal. I'd like to, but every single step of the way, I've talked to assembly people, I've talked to congressmen, they're pointing fingers at each other, basically saying this is a federal issue, this is a state issue. I've tried talking to Gavin Newsom's office to see if by Article 3, they are able to, during state of emergencies, allow the EDD, the governor can change the laws and can change the rules and make something happen differently for the EDD. I am unable to get any sort of action. I've been on a few different TV stations here in Los Angeles, KABC, KCBS, and LAist.com, trying to explain and gather information and raise awareness about this. And awareness has been made. Congressman Schiff understands this. He had a joint webinar with the Screen Actors Guild, sent a letter to Nancy Pelosi about this issue. It was supposed to be addressed in the HEROES Act. It doesn't seem like it's going to be. So my question to you, I know you're not allowed to, but my issue is that as a person that has not worked a single day of W-2 employ in close to 3 years, why am I not able to get PUA? Why am I being detrimentally affected? And how is this going to help me and countless other people in this situation?
Well, Mr. Hermes, thank you for your comment. And I will, if there's no objection from the board, direct Elena Gonzalez, our chief judge, to work with whoever the appropriate person is on staff to contact you and give you whatever assistance we can. And frankly, I'm not sure that we'll be able to resolve your problem, but we'll make sure that someone who is knowledgeable in the area can. It sounds like you've already talked to a lot of knowledgeable people without getting the help you need.
Correct. Correct. I have not. I've been given a lot of different. Hey, call this person. Contact this person. The last people I spoke to this morning was the California State Assembly's Insurance Committee. I spoke to Paul Riches over there, trying to ask him, and basically he said, "Well, there's not much of we're going to be able to do. You should do this and ask the Screen Actors Guild to step in."
I can promise you, we'll have someone contact you if we have a contact email or phone number. You can either contact our office and give us, by phone, and give us an email or phone number privately. Or if you want to just give us your email address now, we'll make sure that it's taken down.
I'm happy to give you my email address right now. It's
And
my
what is-
name, Ben Hermes, BenHermes, @gmail.com.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much for your comments. I'm so sorry you're experiencing these problems. And as I said, someone will get back to you.
Appreciate it.
Jeff, who is our second caller?
Kelly is our second caller.
Hi there. My name is Kelly Duquette, and it's fitting that Ben Hermes went in front of me because I have the exact same issue. I am one of thousands of hybrid workers across California who's now being punished by the Unemployment Development Department system for the exact same issue that he had. I am not an actor, so I don't get residuals. However, in my particular situation, and I'm actually in the process of writing my appeal right now, I will say that, but I do not believe that this is an issue that only needs to be solved on the federal level. I believe that, since I don't need to explain the issue since Ben just did, I will just let you know that I believe that this could be solved on the state level with as simple as Governor Newsom, enacting his powers, as Ben mentioned in what he said regarding during this pandemic. My situation is similar to his, but a little bit different. I'm not an actor, so I don't get residuals, but I had 75 to 80% of my income in 2019 was 1099. I identify myself as self-employed. However, one small side job I had, W-2, from 2019 is all that I am being given for unemployment insurance and on a regular UI claim. And I understand from reading the CARES Act that PUA is for people that don't qualify for regular UI, which is fine, but I believe that as Representative Schiff said in his town hall with the SAG-AFTRA union, that their intention was to count all of your income and not. So we have situations of primarily, I consider myself primarily self-employed. That is the majority of my income. Second of all, I have also returned to work for one of my W-2 employers that I actually got the job after I filed for my unemployment insurance claim. And again, I have excessive earnings. that would go over my claim. However, if my full income was counted, then that would not be the case. If the full income amount of $450 per week plus the $600 from the CARES Act for about $1,000 per week was being allotted to me, which is what I'm owed and deserved, then I would be able to subtract, you know, my earnings from there and be able to have that counted. But as it stands, I will get zero for every week. So I'm being forced to live on $200 a week instead of $1,000 a week, which is what I was making prior to the pandemic. One of my W-2 jobs was a job with the San Diego Padres, and obviously we're not playing baseball right now, and even when they go back, it would be going back without fans, and my job relates to fans. I also had, so I'm partially unemployed in that case, which I believe would make me eligible for PUA, but unfortunately I believe that California has misinterpreted the law that it was stated as Representative Schiff stated and what they didn't intend, and it seems like I believe we could fix it on the state level, but as Ben stated, everybody's been standing us and throwing the feds under the bus and saying, oh, it's a federal issue. So I don't believe that it necessarily will be resolved in the HEROES Act. So again, I have kind of that same concern.
Okay, well, thank you, Kelly. And I'll say the same to you that if you want to give us your email address now publicly, we will have a staff member contact you. But let me just say, if the staff member determines in his or her expertise that yours is a concern that might come to our board, might come to our judges, then we will be precluded from actually taking active steps until your case does come to us so that we can hear your case and whatever the two sides of your case are fresh by our judges. So
I completely understand that, Chairman. I completely understand that. And I'm happy to give you my email as well. Just, I'll say it slowly because my name's a little hard to spell. So it's Kelley, K-E-L-L-E-Y. So K-E-L-L-E-Y. And then my last name is D as in David, U as in Utah, K as in Kite, A as in Apple, T as in Tom. So that's Kelly Duquette at att.net. I've also been on the news talking about this issue as well.
okay, well, thank you, Kelly. Appreciate the comments, and you know, I can speak for the board and our whole organization. Our hearts go out to people who are really caught in what has not been a completely thought through but well-intended program. But hopefully, your comments and those of others in similar situations will get everybody to take a second look at this. And our board does stand ready to, if appropriate, make a decision on your claim when it comes to us. So again, thank you for your comment. Jefferson, is there another person waiting?
We do have one more hand up, Jennifer Olson.
Jennifer Olson. Ms. Olson, go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. So I just my name's Jennifer Kogan, actually. Olson is my maiden name. I'm aware of Kelly and Ben both. We're in this Facebook group that's trying to fight this hybrid worker issue. we're trying to be as vocal as possible. I will say that I have filed my appeal, so it sounds like you guys won't be able to answer any questions, or the appropriate person can't follow up with me until it's heard at the hearing. But I just wanted to say that I am another person with this same issue, and my issue is even more crazy because when I lose my full employment, I actually am eligible for PUA for that week. But what EDD wants to do is pretend like that week doesn't exist and start my claim on a future week, even though I filed a claim immediately. So I feel very confident that I should have a successful appeal because I'm ineligible for UI for my first week of unemployment. And I think part of the reason why EDD is getting really confused about things is because they rolled out PUA with the minimum amount of $167, even though that could be retroactively placed at $450 of a WBA. And so with the $167 for that first week, I'm saying I'm eligible for PUA, I would have excessive earnings, except I actually don't deserve $167. I deserve $386 of a WBA based on my net income for 2019, where I received 0 W-2s. And so I think EDD is getting really confused and forcing all these people to have to go through the appeal process, which I'm lucky enough where I can do that. I can like have my account frozen because my husband is working. So I can pay my rent and I can pay for food. But most of the people cannot afford to appeal the process because it will freeze their money of being paid to them. And so I'm trying to fight on behalf of these other people. So hopefully maybe they can appeal after the 30 days once this pandemic gets resolved more, because other people can't afford that luxury to appeal that I can right now. And so I just wanted to share that information with you guys, that a lot of people are really struggling because they can't appeal. They need the money right now. So I just wanted you to be aware that I exist as well as many other people. And I understand you probably can't offer any information since I have a current appeal going through the process, but just in case, my email is tango, as in the dance, Jennifer, as in my name, at gmail.com. So tangojennifer@gmail.com. And I teach Argentine tango dancing, which was probably not only one of the first career paths impacted, but will probably be one of the last careers brought back, considering we press our bodies against each other while holding hands and then rotate partners. And at tango festivals, people around the world come in to dance with people that travel all around the world. So it's like definitely not coming back anytime soon. And I'm getting the short end of the stick, perhaps, if I don't win my appeal, because of 2 weeks of W-2 wages I earned in March of Q1. And I was actually paid to shelter in place. So I did essentially zero work during that. It's just the company wanted to not screw me over. And ironically, it's screwing me out of PUA. So that's my comment. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your comments, and your appeal will be heard by our judges at the lower level, and then if you're still not satisfied with the outcome, you can, of course, appeal to the board members you see here. And just to be clear, folks do have an opportunity. It can be a lengthy process, but to then go on to the courts if they disagree with our decisions. But thank you for your comments. And now I'll ask Jefferson if there's anybody else waiting for us.
Chair Block, we have no other hands raised at this time.
Okay, thank you, Jefferson. In that case, we move from agenda item 5, public comment, to agenda item number 6, report by our chief ALJ and executive director, Elena Gonzalez. Elena. You're muted, Elena. Can somebody unmute Elena?
I'm sure lots of people have said that from time to time. Good morning, Chair Block, Vice Chair Reeves, members Alan, Eng, and Kent Monning. This is my last meeting, as noted, and I certainly appreciate all your kind comments. And I know that the month has been a long one for us. When I reread the minutes, I realized we did go through this before. You know, am I cut off now, Chair Block?
No, that was the last speaker's 5-minute warning, so we're good.
At any rate, so I mean, I appreciate those thanks from both last month and this month. And I do want to say, when I hear words like from member Eng, a trailblazer, and I've been called a pioneer, and it certainly makes you know that it's time to retire when you're referred to in terms of pioneer. When I made a presentation to the Filipino Bar Association as a pioneer of the law, it just didn't bring home how long I have been in practice. When I started practicing, I typed my own search warrants as a deputy district attorney. I have been in public service for over 40 years, and today I'm trying to figure out, pulling up the agenda on my iPad, texting Jeff the number for Chair Allen, Member Allen, and all the same time looking at you, making sure that I'm muted properly. So the times have changed dramatically from when I started practicing law to now, and I definitely have appreciated my years of public service, as sometimes corny as that might sound. I am honored to have worked for this board. I have been treated very well by the in running this organization through very difficult times. And I'm happy that I've spent most of my career in public service, and I now will happily retire and walk from my living room onto my very small patio. And I guess I will hang out there for the next couple of months here in Los Angeles. At any rate, finally, I know it's been said before, but I do want to thank the incredible senior staff team that makes it all happen, along with the presiding judges, and really the lifeblood of the organization, which are the field offices. I went into the Inglewood Office of Appeals on Monday, or was it just yesterday? Days escape me. At any rate, you know, it was where I started as an ALJ, and where things are still happening. The phones are still ringing. Files are still being mailed. Many of the staff are still, there's a camaraderie, and it just brings home how important the work that we do is and how busy we all are. And the people in the field are still keeping the fires burning in the offices, and it's nice to see them there. So with that, I will go to the report, which is now timed to be out. One moment. So we continue to do very well in our key performance indicators. We closed 82.8% of our cases within 30 days for the month of April. The standard again is 60% or more. We were 82.8. And for the number of cases closed within 45 days, we closed 96.4%, and the standard is 80%. The average case age right now with CUIAB is 21.6 days, and the standard is less than 30 days old. So we continue to do well. Our caseload is increasing, but we are well positioned for that. As the Chair Block mentioned, and Member Eng mentioned, there was a budget letter that did reduce staffing and budgets for departments, but we were granted the exemption. So we are moving forward with hiring 18 ALJs. We've done all of the interviews. We're finalizing the interviews and having the presiding judges of the offices interview finally the ones that would be working for their particular offices. And we hope to end the hiring process and begin the training in 2 or 3 phases at the end of, I believe, starting in June and ending in early July. So we have that program set up. We also had been in the process of hiring some staff members, and that's gone forward. And the final thing is our modernization project is continuing onward, and we're able to keep going with that. So those are some of the positive things going on here. The other 2 items that we have been doing is we have been working with teams. We currently have not yet authorized all to go by video. We're using the audio in Teams through all the judges that are teleworking, but and we're experimenting with what it will look like with exhibits and so on if we use the Teams format for doing video conferencing hearings. So that's on the horizon right now. It's just the audio, and we're setting up for the potential for the future in that. The other thing was the virtual call center. We have been getting lots of calls from folks that aren't able to reach EDD that want some preliminary information. And although we're a quasi-judicial board and can't give specific information to them, we're able to direct them to resources and so on. And the offices were getting a little overwhelmed with these phone calls because we do answer the phones all day long. So we set up a virtual call center where we have various employees throughout the state that weren't able to telework in their normal jobs for the agency and were at home. We've now had lines set up so that like a call center, like the IT help center, it will roll over to different people to answer the phone calls. And there's certain information that they've been provided to provide the caller. So I think that will take a burden off from the field offices, phone answering, and also to assist people to have a live person on the phone. And again, I understand EDD is overwhelmed with calls and so on. And so whatever we can do to help in that regard. But you know, unfortunately, sometimes it's direct them back to EDD because we are quasi-judicial and we are making those kinds of decisions and can't revisit what EDD did unless it's through the formal appeal process, which is what the board mission is. So those are the things we've managed to work through. Many of the same difficulties as we've experienced this morning when you're using new technology to get, sometimes it's a little rocky start, but it's really been an amazing turnaround over the last couple of months. So that is, and there have been no security issues. I rate phone callers from time to time, but no real security issues in the office, in the offices. And that is my report. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Elena, and congratulations on the really good timeliness numbers this month. Sounds great. Just curious, did the male ADAs have to do their own typing as well when you started?
Yes, in fact, that's true. I checked that before I typed my own search warrant. I did ask, is everyone else typing their search warrant? Because when the article in the paper said second woman DA comes to the office, I knew that there was going to be a little bit of a struggle. So yes, they did.
I'm glad
on a
it was
typewriter. On a typewriter with carbon paper.
Oh gosh, you are old. Okay, we'll move now to Jody Remke, our report, presiding administrative law judge for appellate operations. Jody?
Good afternoon, Chair Block, board members. I'm going to be going over the numbers from appellate operations that you have with your material. As you can see, we've done a little bit of a switch with FO, and we are now the ones struggling slightly with our time lapse.
Jody, can I interrupt you for just a second? I'm very sorry. You know, in this new environment here, I forgot, I really, after each report, need to give board members a chance to ask questions or make comments. So let's go around the horn and see if anyone has any questions or comments for Chief Gonzalez. First, Vice Chair Reeves.
I don't, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Member Eng.
No questions or comments from me either.
Member Allen.
I'm good. Thank you.
Member Kent Monning.
I'm also good. Thanks.
Well, Jody, looks like I interrupted you for no reason. So please go ahead with your report.
So as I was saying, I'm just taking a look at the appellate operations timeliness standards, and we have seen a dramatic decline in meeting the DOL standard for cases resolved in 45 days or less. As we've talked about in prior months, we knew this was coming. This was the direct result of a significant reduction in February dispositions by the board, which was a direct result of the AO-ALJs going into the field to help the field. So we're fortunate that the field is in really good shape right now. And now it's AO's turn. And what we've done is, one thing is we have modestly increased the caseload for the AO-ALJs. As you'll recall, the caseload for the field ALJs was increased several months ago. We didn't need to do it in AO at the time, but obviously now we're in that situation. So we've modestly increased it. Looking forward, based on our existing caseload, it should be about 8 to 10 weeks at the most before we're again meeting the standard on 45 days or less. Projecting that out into the future, we should have no problem meeting our annual DOL standard. So I'm still not too concerned. We're going to closely monitor this, that case aging, the caseload, and the workload of each AO-ALJ. Obviously, there should be no problem if the cases stay where they are now, number coming in. If we see a dramatic increase, we're going to have to revisit this. And obviously, we have a couple options. The first would be to consider bringing back some retired annuitants to help out. I've already heard from several who are more than willing to do so if necessary. And then again, longer term, whether or not we would need to hire additional AO-ALJs. But right now, I'm confident we're going to be okay and we'll meet our standard for the year. If anything changes, I'll be reporting on that in the future.
Well, that's good. And we have that on recording on YouTube.
Yeah, oops, wait, back. Can we replay?
Okay, let's see if any of the members have questions or comments? Vice Chair Reeves? Vice Chair Reeves, you're muted.
I lost you.
Okay, Member Eng? Member
Should
Eng is
unmute here. Okay, yeah, thank you for that report. I guess just, you know, I should know better because I've been on the board at least a year, but also anticipating a real sharp uptick in the cases. What's the actual effect of not meeting the DOL guidelines, just generally?
Well, it hasn't happened since I've been here, but my understanding is we would be on a correction action plan. Is that an appropriate term? I'd leave it to Chief Gonzalez to respond more.
Elena, do you want to unmute and respond to that?
Yes, if at the end of the measurement year, we just finished the March 31st measurement year, so we have until next March 31st before they will measure us again. And were we not to comply by March 31st of 2021, then DOL could put us on a corrective action plan. We'd have to report and meet with them regularly as to how we would comply in the future. But monthly, they don't look at us until the end of the measurement year. So month by month, it's for our own internal measurement, and it doesn't go to department. I mean, they don't pay attention, or no actions taken during the interim periods of time.
Yeah, thank you. And I imagine since this is a DOL issue that, you know, we're not the only ones that are going to be facing these challenges. But thank you to both of you for that response. I have nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Michael. Member Allen?
I have no questions other than I'm very grateful for Jody providing me with a lot of information regarding these new federal programs. And I think it's going to take a little while for it to get settled out and the administration worked out. But I think it's going to be a great benefit for the folks of California once they get it right.
Thank you, Michael. Member Ken Monning?
Just thank you for everything you're doing, and also the information that you sent our way is very useful. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, now we move on to item number 8 on our agenda, which is report by our Chief Information Officer, Jeff Willoughby. Jefferson.
Thank you, Chair Block, members of the board. Well, welcome to our first video remote meeting. We hit the national average of 12 minutes in order to get the thing set up and working right. So we'll do better next time. And we're really working hard to make this as easy as possible for the board members and staff, and of course the public to participate in and make easy. Good news that our partners at EDD Procurement, Chief Gonzalez mentioned this, have advertised our modernization project out to the vendor community. They did that on May 1st, and we'll have our vendor responses by the next board meeting. So I should have a more fulsome report at that time. Once evaluated and scored, we'll be ready to award the contract. So we're getting very close to having a systems integrator or contractor here to do the work of putting the new system in place. As you can imagine, the IT branch has been quite busy supporting moves to telework throughout the state. We've been trying to make sure that we support the users in their new environments. And I'd like really to thank all of the folks who are working within the IT branch for their efforts, and of course the patience of all the folks that we're trying to get out there and teleworking. On slightly different notes, we do have other systems and things going on sort of behind the scenes. A new trouble ticketing system is in the process of testing now, and we'll start to get more information on that. You'll see that in your email boxes in the coming weeks. And some of our work has been on hold for obvious reasons in terms of travel, but when we're able to restart, we'll be continuing with projects like improving network speed to all of our field offices and installing teleconferencing equipment to support things like viewing of board meetings, town halls, and we are especially looking forward to being able to do remote training using those. And that's my report for this month.
Well, thank you, Jefferson. Our IT department certainly is much different than it was a few years ago when I came on as board chair, and you've done a remarkable job. So thank you so much. At this point, rather than going around to all the members, let's see if the hand raising function works. Is that appropriate, Jefferson? Any members want to comment? If so, raise your hand virtually if you know how to do that.
I have no idea how to do that, but I'd like to ask a question of Jeff.
Okay, that's a real raising of the hand. Go ahead, Dan.
Okay. Jeff, I'm a little confused as to the status of the field office's ability to do Zoom sort of hearings. I know that we've been transitioning to telephone hearings, but I was wondering if you can provide some clarity as to their ability, or at least some of their ability, to do face-to-face online hearings. Is that happening or not happening?
It's not.
And if
We are using Microsoft Teams, but we are using an actual calling function within Teams to emulate what we would do if the judge was in a hearing room, which would be literally to conference the physical phone, conference parties onto a physical phone, and place a microphone next to it to record the hearing. We've not transitioned yet into a video state to do these for a variety of reasons. One, we haven't fully baked out the security aspect of it. If we wish to save either the audio or the audio and the video of a hearing, where do we do it? How large are those files? Is there a cost impact? There's several things that we are kind of plowing through, but we haven't come to grips with all of them yet.
Okay, and right now we don't take a video of hearings under normal circumstances. We just audio record them.
Correct.
So it wouldn't be necessary to actually capture the video. But is there I mean, I know that you're trying to build a plane as you fly here. Is there the possibility to move to a video process in the short term, or is that perhaps a bridge too far, given all the enormous workload that's coming down the pike for you and your colleagues?
I won't say it can't be done. We will be in the process of trying to stand up the new system at the same time. So it would take some diversion, but I'm happy to articulate that to you through staff, if you like, what the work would look like.
Thank you, Dan. Other three board members, raise your hand either virtually or on the screen so I can see if you have any question or comment on recognized. Okay, Member Allen.
Yes, Jefferson, Jeff, with me, I just wanted to explain what happened because maybe it would happen to others in the future. When I got the invitation to the meeting, the Zoom meeting a few days ago, there was a panel at the top that said accept. I pressed the accept button, assuming that meant that on the day of the meeting, I'd get a prompt and I'd get the link. What happened is it disappeared completely from my screen and never came back. So I just wanted to from my experience, if that's helpful, because I know I expected there's always problems when you're first starting a new system, but I just want to tell you that's what happened in my situation.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Member Ing. Unmute, Mike.
I wanted to thank Jefferson. I don't know if you made the service available, but he knows from my history that I'm so technology challenged that he had two private Zoom tutorials with me just to make sure that that I would be on board. But seriously, I did have a question. Let's assume that at some point, whatever it is, cost saving, security, we had to revert to an all online hearing process. How number one, would that be a cost savings? And secondly, how long would it take to achieve that if we were given an order to do that? This is, of course, speaking just, very kind of with a great deal of a grain of salt if it should happen to occur.
Sure, at a very high level hypothetical, it would not take long for us to do it technologically. There are certainly tools, and we're using one of them that we could leverage to do that. Now, its use in our sphere, I would have to let the attorneys weigh in on that one. But technically, obviously, that it could work. There are cost considerations, but that's what the business case ultimately is for, what the analysis of multiple platforms would be for. And that would be the exercise that I would advocate we go through before jumping onto a particular platform, for instance. We would need to weigh what the options are in the industry, who else is using this similarly, and then what the benefits, drawbacks, costs, and so forth are for each one of them. And then the board can make a decision on how we would implement that and the policy framework that would need to surround it.
Mr. Chair, just to follow up, my last question would be, just again at a 10,000 mile level, do you think that that would lead to a cost savings or more of a cost burden if we were to go to all online hearings? Let's put aside the legal issue of due process. Where we've instituted, has it resulted in a cost savings or has it cost more?
It's a little bit more, but it's currently a wash. Again, if you have no in-person hearings, and again, very hypothetical, or you lower them substantially, there are other costs that don't need to be incurred. So again, that's business case material that we would need to put a lot of thought through and present to the board for a decision.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mike. And just to comment on your question, the board will, at our next few meetings, maybe start to look into if we did go to more virtual hearings, whether all telephonic or audio visual, would we need as many brick and mortar sites as we currently have? We rent most of our sites and leases will end at different times, but we could potentially save a lot of money by not renewing given leases. So, and Elena could probably comment on that. You want to comment briefly on that, Elena?
Yes, that is one of the long-range planning that we as senior staff were starting to discuss, what the future looked like in terms of having a hybrid of some in-person hearings and some hearings by video conferencing. We've been discussing this with other agencies too, because there's also the question of exhibits. So video conferencing right now is not as usable to us at the moment because we can't get exhibits in and share documents and so on. The other issue is the modernization project that Jeff and his team have been working on so rigorously should be able to roll out in the spring, and that program will have all the ability to have a portal with all the documents in it and the video conferencing abilities all built into that. So we were a little reluctant at this point to engage in a wholesale stopgap, and there really wasn't the time and the energy to devote to what would a video conferencing look like immediately when we've been working on this longer range project that admittedly will take until the spring. But there's no question there's cost savings when you don't have the physical footprint of the number of outstations and hearing facilities that we have. We have hearing rooms, we have ALJ offices, we have staff space, and if more of it is done through video or online hearings, then there will be most likely cost savings for physical spaces, definitely.
Okay, thank you, Elena. Thanks for the question, Mike. Member Monning, Ken Monning.
Hi, thank you. This question just relates back to what Chair Block shared with us at the beginning about a 5% higher attendance rate by the parties since things have been moved virtually. And I was interested, Jeff, if you know this or just something to maybe learn in the future, are parties participating only by phone, or are they also doing internet participation, or is the teams just on the CUIAB end of it? And I guess what I'm really getting at is I'm sure there are parties for whom internet access is a challenge, and what does that look like connected to this conversation we're having? But It was great to see that that number is actually an increase, and I was surprised by that. But if you had any information about that, I guess I'm just curious what this is looking like for the parties who are appearing in this virtual time.
Sure. So today they are phone hearings by and large, and they're using a phone tied in basically to Teams. So even though Teams is video enabled, today we're using the telephony that's built into it. So we're directly contacting those parties, and I think that we're getting live people on the end of the phones more regularly, and that likely is contributing to the increase in our ability to process those.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Moving on now to item 9, last item on our open session. That's a report by Rob Silva, our Chief Administrative Services Officer. Rob.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to start with an update to our bilingual language program. I had reported during last month's board meeting that the pay differential, the monthly pay differential, was recently doubled to $200 for state employees. And May just happens to be one of the 2 months of the fiscal year in which we have our employees that receive the bilingual pay differential complete time ladders to capture their time spent utilizing their bilingual skills through both verbal and written communications in the workplace. At the end of the month, we will use the average of this data from May and the data previously submitted from November of 2019 to ensure that those receiving this monthly pay differential are using their skills at or above the 10% threshold to qualify for that differential. Currently we will have 39 employees engaging in this particular audit. Excuse me. A quick update on PPE. The supplies are beginning to catch up with demand with regard to ordering personal protective equipment and sanitizer. Our procurements have been arriving in our offices, and we've also had 8 employees purchase a total of about $650 worth of items for their respective offices, and those employees will be reimbursed for those purchases by the state. Labor agency informed all of its departments recently that we will need to routinely submit copies of procurement documents relating to these types of purchases. We submit them to labor agency for uploading into a governor's office portal for public access. And these documents we recently found out are to include the CalAIDers reimbursement claims from employees that have chosen to personally buy these items for their offices. Emergency paid sick leave update. We're now about a month and a half since the inception of the emergency paid sick leave and the expanded family medical leave programs. In that time frame, we have approved intermittent or continuous emergency paid sick leave for 32 employees, which is roughly 9% of our staff. The majority of those approvals have been due to school closures and other childcare related reasons. Of those, because that's the qualifying condition for the EFMLA piece. So far of those, 9 employees have also been approved for the EFMLA component of that particular program. Due to support staff being away from the office utilizing these programs, we came to lean heavily on support staff retired annuitant usage in the month of April, actually March and April. Just to give you a gauge, through February of 2020, we were averaging 111 monthly hours of retired annuitant staff usage in field operations. We tripled that usage in March and April, averaging 341 monthly hours during that period. Back in March, it was on March 18th, the administration suspended both the 960-hour fiscal cap on retired annuitant usage and the 180-day break in service requirement to accept employment as a retired annuitant. So with that, we've reached out to some recently retired support staff to see whether they would like to be added to our roster to support us during this time. So far, we've had one taker who will soon be returning to assist our Fresno office. And we are about to, as Ms. Remke mentioned with regard to appellate operations, we're also about to reach out to some possible retired annuitant ALJs for field operations work. I was going to provide an update to our supplemental budget request for the new unemployment programs. During the last board meeting, I reported that we had a deadline of April 30th to submit an SBR, supplemental budget request, to the U.S. Department of Labor to obtain startup funding to administer the pandemic unemployment assistance, pandemic emergency unemployment compensation, the federal pandemic unemployment compensation programs. Our appeals implementation costs get rolled up into EDD, who submits the SBR on our behalf to Department of Labor. After the EDD submitted the supplemental budget request, the Department of Labor requested that our departments follow up by listing the specific tasks the employees would be performing to implement these programs. And those tasks were submitted on May 12th. 2 days later, the Department of Labor reached out again, requesting that we ensure that only implementation activities are included in the request. They were of the opinion that some of the staff types included in the initial request did not appear to have a role in actual implementation. I want the board to know that the entirety of CUIAB's submission adhered to these guidelines, and we reported that to EDD Monday. So we expect EDD to follow up with Department of Labor this week. Our portion, the appeals portion of this ask for the federal government, is very small. It's just under $100,000. And I'll let the board know if and when we receive that funding. This pushback is a little atypical. I think it's more directed with some of the items that EDD submitted, because all of ours seems to be very data driven without any problems. But this small amount of funding is one of many kind of moving pieces of uncertainty with regard to our personnel budget as we prepare for the coming fiscal year 2021. We have a union with a contract that expires at the end of this fiscal year. We have another union due for a pay increase in July, and a geographic pay differential component. But with the governor's recent announcements of pay decreases for 2020-21, we're for now in a holding pattern to determine the specific staffing dollars for next fiscal year. We have good news in that the governor's May revision is up on Department of Finance's website. The specifics of our budget change proposal don't yet appear to be up on Finance's website. So I don't necessarily feel comfortable at this moment reporting what our specific position allocation is, because it doesn't seem to be up in a public sense yet. But the high level data is on Finance's website, and it does include position increases for the UI program. And it's a total of 777.1 positions, I believe, for the Employment Development Department as a whole. And a portion of those positions will obviously be assigned to CUIAB to address obviously what we perceive to be the increasing workload in the coming months. As previously reported earlier in this meeting, the Department of Finance had issued the Budget Letter 2011 asking departments to reduce expenditures. I'd like to give credit to Lori Kurosaka and our legal office for penning the exemption request to that budget letter. And as already reported, it's been approved, our exemption request, so we will be able to continue the contracting for appeals modernization efforts and continue to be able to hire staff to address our workload. And I think Elena had mentioned that we completed the ALJ interviews. We actually, 9 of the 18 candidates are already in the name clearance phase. So we intend bringing them in during June. We also, in addition, we currently have support staff recruitments for 6 office technicians, 1 management services technician, and a program technician 3 for field operations. And 2 of the office technician positions are slated as bilingual to help with the shortage in both our Oxnard and Sacramento offices. I think that is the end of my report. I do want to say, if I may, one other thing. I will not drag out a public meeting with thank yous to Chief Gonzalez. I'll do that privately, but I do want to publicly acknowledge a thank you from me for when she came aboard, which would have been 2013 into the current position. We were going through a zero-based budget exercise with Department of Finance that had a severe fiscal impact on this department, and how we got through the following years after that, how we would have got through without her, I have no idea. So I want to personally thank you, Chief Gonzalez, for helping us get through that very difficult time. And that is my report. I'll wait for questions.
Thank you, Rob. Looking now at the other board members, if you have a question or comment, please raise your hand. I see Dan. Any others have comments or questions? Mike Eng. Okay, let's start with Vice Chair Reeves.
Thank you, Rob. Can you bring some clarity for one thing? You said that we are exempt from the hiring freeze that I believe the governor is implementing. The governor also talked about a 5% across the board pay cut for state employees, which I would assume meant furloughs. Have we been exempted from that furlough program? I mean, where do we stand on that?
No, the answer is no, we have not. The exemption I specifically mentioned was to be able to continue with contracting and hiring staff from that specific budget letter. Now, with regard to what the pay increase that may or may not include furloughs, we don't, as we speak, have an exemption from that. We intend to put together an exemption request to it. But as of now, we're treated just as everyone else, every other state department.
And we are federally funded, right? So this is not, if we were to furlough people, it wouldn't be necessarily state general fund savings, would it?
It would be a minuscule state general fund savings. We are predominantly federally funded. You are correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Member Eng.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Silva, I just had a question. I think last month you reported the increase of the pay differential doubled from $100 for translators. Do we keep any records of requests for translations that for one reason or another cannot be fulfilled for any particular dialect or any particular language?
We keep records for everything with regard to our language program, and we can always get documents translated or telephonic communications taken care of by utilizing an outside vendor if our employees cannot serve that particular language.
Okay, so it's safe to say that any claimant or employer representative or anyone else that appears at a hearing can be accommodated. It used to be AT&T. I'm not sure what it is right now. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say, yes. We have an outside telephonic vendor, and we've always had one in place. It changes every few years, but just as an example, in the case if there's an exotic language, we won't hold that hearing until we can find a proper interpreter to assist with the hearing.
Okay. My second question relates to what I brought up earlier. So the May revise had the cut to the agency of, what did I say it was, 12.5%. It was in the May revise, the general fund expenditure was a minus 14.5% to labor and workforce. And I understand that that was just a proposal. Was there any disaggregation of that as far as a recommendation from the executive branch in terms of what that would cover? Or was that just a blanket proposal to the agency?
I haven't read the details on on that, I do know that there is desegregation within labor agency in that in the same revise specifically for EDD, of which CUIAB is a portion, he is proposing significant hiring increases.
Okay, so I guess I'm trying to reconcile the exemption and the additional hiring with this proposed 14.5% budget cut. And I mean, if it's not known right now, but I would like to know if there was anything that was proposed in that direction, if you could just send it to me or the board offline as we go forward, because I think that it's incumbent on us to know what types of cuts are proposed, and I guess in consultation with Mr. Chair to decide if there is an appropriate role for the board to weigh in on that. I believe 3 out of the 5 members of the board served during the time of the Great Recession. And I know that there was, no one took the proposed cuts as 100% given. And obviously we're in different roles right now, but I would like to know in advance before those decisions are made as to anything that would affect our agency, if that's possible.
Okay.
Is that possible, or?
Yes, we the general reduction ask, Department of Finance hasn't put together the specifics underneath that data, but as soon as we find out information, I can share it with the board. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Michael. Any other board members have any questions for Mr. Silva? Seeing none, we will now, let's see, we're done with our open session agenda items. Now we do have a closed session today, and we will come back into open session after the closed session. For those who may be watching who are not part of the closed session, this will be the end of this meeting. But for those of us who are involved in closed session, this is merely a recess. And then we will move to the closed session part of the meeting, which is a separate logon number with Zoom. It's a separate meeting altogether. Now it is almost exactly 2:30. We had originally thought the closed session would start at 2. So first of all, I want to take a 10-minute recess for any technical issues and other issues. So a 10-minute recess. So we'll start again at 2:40 in our closed session. And would someone let the second candidate in the closed session know that we're delayed by about 40 minutes from our expected start? The first candidate knows that. And with that, I'd like to thank my puppy for staying quiet and thank all of you for making it through an interesting first Zoom meeting with almost no problems. So thank you all.
Mr. Chair, is it possible that we could be emailed the second login information just in case it didn't disappear from our screens? If someone could send us the second one.
It is in the same calendar invite that I sent yesterday. It is
okay. I'll make sure it hasn't disappeared.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that, we will now recess for 10 minutes and see you all in closed session. Am I missing anything? Now, in that case, the board is moving out of recess back into open session to announce that during its closed session, the board conducted interviews for and deliberated on the selection of an executive officer chief ALJ. The board voted 5-0 to select Jody Remke, subject to applicable administrative and civil service requirements. Congratulations, Jody, and we look forward to working with you. That concludes the board meeting of May 20th, 2020. Thank you all To my colleagues on the board, to senior staff who were helpful with both open and closed session, and particularly to the IT staff in Jefferson for making this all possible. Thank you all, and with that, we are adjourned.